How's it going, folks? This is Bill once again with the Nintendo Super Power Club Challenge channel. We've got a little celebration for you here. It is a progress update of 70 completed challenges. We have 100 more to go out of the 170. We've made quite a bit of progress in the 3+ years we've been doing this project, and we thank you very much for sticking with us all this time. Rest assured, we are not done until we get them all. Similar to the 50 challenge update, we will be talking about challenges and cards that are in the works and on the horizon, but one thing you'll notice that's different is that the cards that have already been completed will be just displayed with a blacked out rectangle over top of the card. There's no sense in talking about them any further since they've already been talked about ad nauseum, and we don't want to bore you to death with those. If you really want to watch some of those previous challenges, just simply go into my playlist and look for the challenges and the cards that you're interested in. Alright, sit back and relax as we talk about the remaining 100 challenges yet to come. Here we go. Okay, we are off and running with this card collection again, and you see we got tic-tac-toe across the middle, 3 challenges done with 6 to go. And we've already talked a little bit about a couple of these cards, with Super Mario Bros. 3 being the most obvious one, and we know that one is going to be very difficult, and that one is still in the works. But I want to talk about a different one instead, which has now recently been picked up, and that is ActRaiser, the original one on the Super NES. So, one of my more favorite games on the system. You take this, flip it over, look at the back. This is a very difficult challenge, and there's a good reason I haven't gotten to it yet. It's asking us on Pro level to beat the game at level 10, which basically, if you don't know what that means, you need to speedrun that game as fast as you possibly can to avoid accidentally leveling up. And obviously, this game is difficult enough on its own, but speedrunning the game and not getting many power-ups and keeping yourself at bare minimum levels is very much a pro-level challenge, and it's one that I look forward to getting to. I think I can pull it off, and I look forward to pulling this one off and showing it to you very soon. Other than that, not really tackling any of the other Game Boy games out there or Super Play Action Football, but we will get to them eventually, obviously. Let's go ahead and look on to the next sheet of cards. Okay, as we move on to this next sheet of cards with the 4 cards that are remaining, we've got some pretty difficult puzzle challenge games here with not only Lemmings, but also Adventures of Lolo 3, who you hear that phenomenal, amazing, kick-ass background ending music to. I could listen to that all day long after beating that game. And I've teased it enough because I'd say probably within the last 4 or so videos we've said that that could be a possible game that we're working on, and in fact it is. It will be coming up very soon. And for that very reason, we're going to take a look at this game a little bit more in depth right now. So you take a quick gander at this card, and at first glance maybe it doesn't seem that tough if you're used to Lolo games, but I tell you, this is by far the toughest set of Lolo levels in the entire trilogy. Pro level challenge, using the password provided, goes straight to the final level and beat all 10 stages essentially while losing 0 lives. So if you played any of the Lolo games, particularly this last one, you know, obviously, this is an extremely difficult game and a very, very difficult challenge. Doing it without losing any lives, can it be done? Yes, of course, but doing it in one clean shot without losing a life, yeah, it's pro level, if not uber pro. Good luck with this one. Very fun, but very, very good luck. Alright, I think you can tell where we're going with this one based on the music. So yeah, if you look at the top, we got Super Smash TV up there, which I said back in the 50 card challenge collection was arguably the toughest challenge in the entire collection. And I still think that it probably is, but there are still quite a few difficult ones on this list, and one that I'm going to take a look at right now is Dr. Mario, just for the sake of the fact we've already talked about Super Smash TV to death right now. But Dr. Mario, honestly, I think it's more about luck than actual challenge. If you look at this card, Pro Level wants us to get 7 matches based off of one single cascade. And for those of us who have played any kind of puzzle match games, sometimes you know that this is purely based on luck, and I assure you that this challenge is very much purely based on luck. I've given this one quite a few tries, and the most I've ever gotten at once, I believe, was like 4, maybe 5 matches at once. That's not to say that this can't be done, but obviously you're going to have a much better chance of pulling off, I'd say probably Battletoads or even a game like Kickle Cubicle before you get this game. And we'll talk about those other games a little bit eventually as we get to them, but yeah, I really don't like luck-based challenges, and sadly there are quite a few of them that are remaining in the 100 games that we have yet to complete. Alright, all the other ones, as I've said, we'll give them a shot at some point. I'm not holding my breath on Super Smash TV, but we've already talked about that one to death. Let's get moving on. Okay, here we go with the next sheet and the 6 remaining challenges on there. And as you can tell by the more upbeat music, we've got a pretty interesting card we're going to take a look at here in just a moment. We have, in the past, looked at Super R-Type. We've talked about the challenge, and that one is pretty close to being done. I've made some progress on the final end part of it, but it's still very tough. The only other game that I can tell you is actually in the works and on the way is Prince of Persia. It's very similar to the original computer game and also the Super NES. But let's go ahead and let's look at F-Zero since we've got that music playing, and it's a very popular game. I bet you're probably wondering why I haven't posted that one yet. Well, we're going to take a look at it. So here we are. Challenge states that we need to, on the simplest level, Night City, or rather Mute City in the beginner class, we need to destroy 3 cars before losing the race. Now it says lose the race because, as I'm sure you know, that game moves pretty fast, and if you're focusing more on killing cars as opposed to beating them in a race, you're not going to win. And I've tried, I've come very close a couple of times, but it's tough. What more can I say? It's very, very tough to knock out 3 cars while beating the race. I hope to have it done fairly soon, along with a couple other racing games in here. But that's where we're at right now. Let's go ahead and move on with the next sheet of cards. Okay, with this sheet of cards, with the remaining 4 that we see, there really isn't a whole lot new to update you on based on what you saw in the 50 card completion video. We're still working on Super Mario Kart. We're pretty close to having that one done, and rest assured, as I've said previously, that is absolutely a pro level challenge. Beating the 100cc Special Cup with no items, it's extremely tough, and you gotta be a hardcore battle-tested Mario Kart expert to know how to get through that one. Other than that, Battle Clash, as I mentioned, that requires a Super Scope. I can't really do that one until I come into possession of one. And I haven't really played the other Game Boy games, so I can't really comment much on them. So based on that, I have nothing further to add to these cards. So let's move on to the next sheet. Okay, entering into this next sheet of cards, I can tell you this is very similar to the last sheet in terms of progress. We have 6 cards remaining to go, and the only card that we have currently in the works is Soul Blazer, and it's a card that, while I don't think the game is extremely difficult, the challenge obviously is, because the only way you can complete it, as we talked about in the previous few videos, or the previous 50 card challenge video, is that you need to stock up on secondary ammo. If you can't do that, you're not going to beat the challenge. It is a borderline pacifist challenge, but you need the secondary ammo. Without it, good luck. As for the other cards on this list, we talked a little bit about Roadrunner's Death Valley Rally, and that's virtually impossible unless you know those levels inside and out. Getting to stage 2-3 without taking a hit, good luck on that one. It's right up on par with some of the more difficult cards on this list. Aside from that, I really can't talk about much of the other games because I haven't played them too much. Although if you've played the original Gauntlet, you know what Gauntlet 2 is all about. It's pretty much the exact same thing. The only difference is that it's a little bit tougher, and there's no music in the game, which is kind of sad, but that's a little bit about what it is. Alright, not a whole lot more else to comment on this sheet, so let's just move on to the next sheet of cards. Alright, I bet you're probably sick of hearing this theme song by now, considering how much we've teased this game, and I can't blame you if you are. You're probably sick of the theme song, you're probably sick of the game, and you're probably sick of hearing about this challenge, because we've talked about it quite a bit in quite a few previews. Unfortunately, this game, Bart vs. the Space Mutants of course, only has about 2 or 3 pieces of music along with the added sound effects. So, for that reason, I'm not going to talk about it much more. I'll just say that it's in progress, it's in the works. I have given an honest shot to it, and obviously it's very tough, and that's why you don't have the video right now. So just chill, hang tight, it is coming, I promise. As for the other 2 games, Black Bass Fishing, I have given that one a shot, and who knows when that one's going to be coming. Wing Commander, I really haven't given an honest look at, so I can't comment on it very much. Other than that, there's really not much else to say because you're looking at a bunch of black rectangles. On to the next sheet of cards. Okay, so as you can plainly tell, this is by far the most successful sheet of cards that we've done up to this point. We have 7, count them, 7 out of the 9 challenges completed. The only 2 remaining, Out of This World and Hunt for Red October, are games that I've either neither played or played very little. In the case of Out of This World, I've only played it 1 time back when it first came out as a rental, and I haven't touched it since. Hunt for Red October I have played a few times, and the game is just very difficult and very tedious and frustrating at points, so I really haven't bothered to play it much besides that. So for those reasons, I can't really comment on these games very much because I'm not actively tackling them. Although Out of This World, I will say, is very similar to Prince of Persia, if you've ever played that game in the past, and many people have. So it is fun for what it's worth, although I've only played it 1 or 2 times in my life. That one will be picked up sooner than later. But enough about that, let's just move right on to the next sheet of cards. Okay, here's a sheet we haven't had a lot of success with. As you can see, there are still 8 open challenges. And one of them that's probably staring you right in the face is Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening on the Game Boy. And while I know that's a very popular game, honestly, it's a game that I'm not very familiar with. I have played it a few times, but not nearly anywhere to the extent of, say, A Link to the Past or Zelda 1 or Zelda 2 on the original NES. So I don't know it quite nearly well enough to go through it and beat the game with a single playthrough, which is what the Pro Challenge is. So I will get to that one eventually once I garner up a little bit more time to study the game. But the one that I'm going to take a look at right now is the one you hear the background music for, which is Shadowrun. Shadowrun is a rather obscure game in the sense that obviously it's not anywhere near as well known as, say, Kirby's Adventure or Zelda or any of those other games out there. But you flip it over, take a quick look at it, and the pro level challenge is asking you to beat the entire game using only the Beretta pistol, which, believe me, if you played it legitimately, is very much a pro level challenge. But guess what? As I'm sure some of you know, there is a debug mode, which was recently found out with a cheat code. You can actually access the debug mode and go pretty much straight to the end of the game, and you can do it while keeping only the Beretta pistol. So, yes, it's a cheat, but it's built into the game, so it is legal. It can be done as part of the challenge. It doesn't say that you can't do it. So, other than that, other games on this list, SimCity is a game I don't know that we'll ever get to, just because of the sheer time it takes to complete, for the challenge anyway, considering that you can't use the $1 million code. Every other game out there, as usual, we will get to at some point, including Zelda Link's Awakening. So there we go, on to the next sheet. Okay, I know we've got Arnie the Terminator just staring at us right there on the right-hand side, but we're not going to stare back at him. We're not really interested in tackling that game right now. And I know we've also got Legend of Zelda looking at us on the left-hand side. However, as I've said a couple of times throughout the course of this project, I am looking to post both Legend of Zelda challenges at the exact same time. Believe it or not, I've actually already done both of the challenges, but the reason I haven't posted the video is because I only recorded the final Ganon fight, and I wanted to show the entire final dungeon, so unfortunately I need to go back and redo both of those challenges. Consuming, but it will happen soon. Vegas Stakes in the top left-hand corner, I don't know if I've talked about this one, but it is entirely luck-based. You need to sit down at a slot machine and come out of there with a certain dollar amount, and whether or not you do it is entirely dependent on the pull of a slot machine. So, you could do it within a few minutes, or it could take several hours. For that reason, it's not worth my time, at least not till the very end. Alright, enough blabbing, let's go ahead and talk about the game you hear the music for, which is NES Open Tournament Golf. So, I want to look at this one because it's not only challenging, but also fun. So if you look at this challenge here, it's asking us to beat Luigi in match play without losing a single hole on a course of your choice. So for those of you who don't know anything about golf, match play, unlike traditional stroke play, match play means you need to have a better score than your opponent after every single hole. So there are 18 holes in a traditional game of golf, and you need to beat your opponent 18 straight times on 18 holes. It sounds difficult, and it absolutely is. I would much rather prefer this be stroke play than match play, but it is what it is. Usually when I attempt this challenge, I get to hole maybe 11 or 12, and that's only because I've studied the holes relentlessly to get as far as that. It's extremely tough. I do look forward to posting that one. It's a very rewarding challenge, and hopefully I can have it done sooner than later. But that's where we're at right now with these remaining challenges here. Alright, onward we go to the next sheet. Okay, and with the cards that we've got remaining on this sheet, I've got to confess, we've got some pretty fun titles here, and I've gotten into pretty much all of them at one point or another, with the exception of Star Trek. I've never been that big of a Trekkie fan. I was always more into Star Wars, but that's neither here nor there. So obviously you know where we're going with this one. If you know anything about me and the types of games that I like, we are absolutely talking about Mortal Kombat. And once again, if you haven't figured this out by now, I am a very prominent player in the Mortal Kombat Classic community, specifically Mortal Kombat 2, which also has its own challenge and will be discussed later on, toward the last sheet, I believe. As far as this game goes, I don't know if we've actually talked about the challenge or taken a look at it, so let's go ahead and flip this over and do just that. So on this card, it's actually a very simple challenge, at least as far as I'm concerned. You just need to beat the medium difficulty, well, not even beat it, just get up to Goro and do it without using any special moves. Now, if the challenge said to do it with doing so on very hard difficulty, I could see that being a considerably more difficult challenge. But as it stands, it's not tough at all. The only reason I haven't posted it yet is because I'm having some issues with sound and constant flickering, and I need to clear that up before I can post the challenge, obviously. That wouldn't be very fun for you guys to listen to and sound like your ears are going through a tree shredder. So, unfortunately, that one's going to have to sit still. Other than that, looking at some of the other challenges on this remaining sheet, Raging Fighter on the Game Boy is actually a closet good fighting game as far as portable games with 2 buttons go. I do recommend trying that one out. And Seventh Saga is actually an underrated RPG. For those of you looking for a good classic old school RPG to play, highly recommend that one as well. Not quite as good as Final Fantasy in my opinion, but it's still very good, ranks up there. So that's pretty much all we got to talk about on this sheet. I can't really comment on Lost Vikings as I've never really played it that much. So let's go ahead and dive into the next sheet of cards. Alright, so if you think back to the 50 card celebration video, we talked a little bit about Secret of Mana, which is a very, very good game. So now, to mix things up, we're going to talk about a very, very bad game, or at least a very, very bad challenge. And that would be NHL Stanley Cup. For those of you who've never played it, which is most of you, it's very similar to the way that NCAA basketball plays out, the only exception being is that it's on an ice hockey rink instead of a hardwood floor. Now, why is this so difficult of a challenge? Well, let's take a look at it. Back of the card, Pro Challenge wants us to score, get this, 500 goals over the course of a single season. So, for those of you who know nothing about hockey or very little, there are approximately 82 games in a season, or at least nowadays. Back then it might have been like 84 games. So I'm no math genius, but do the math real quick. 500 divided by 82, 84 comes out to like, I don't know, 7, 8 goals a game. It's not going to happen in 30 minutes. It's going to take several hours, in fact many, many hours, to be able to pull this off. If you could pull it off at all. It is not an easy challenge, and I can think of many different ways to utilize my time versus playing an outdated hockey simulator. Nothing against hockey, it's just what it is. So, I hope I never have to talk about this game ever again until the very end, if and when I ever attempt it. So, it's enough with that game. Aside from that, I gotta be honest, I'm not really attempting any of these other challenges, so we're just gonna skip them for now, and we'll move on to the next challenge in the next page. Alrighty, we are now looking at sheet number 13 worth of cards in the collection here. We got 4 down, 5 to go. And I gotta be honest, as far as this sheet goes, I'm really not attempting anything at the current moment. The only one that really jumps off the page as interesting and what I will probably be going after next is Kirby's Pinball Land. When I think of pinball games in any kind of video game or the PC, any console, the ones that immediately jump to my mind, the better ones, or for that matter, are Epic Pinball and Extreme Pinball, both by Epic Games, Epic Mega Games previously. 2 of the best pinball games I've ever played, but I digress. Kirby's Pinball Land is Kirby from Kirby's Adventure and Kirby's Dream Land, but in pinball form. So it's kind of similar to Sonic Spinball, what they did with Sonic the Hedgehog, making him a pinball ball. Anyway, it's enough about that. I have played the game in the past, it's been a long time, but it is very fun. I don't know much about it beyond that, and I assume that the challenge is probably score-based. Other than that, like I said, not really tackling much else, so we're just going to move right on through to the next sheet. Alright, so here we've got 4 Super NES games remaining, with the prime main event, of course, being Super Metroid. And there's pretty much no change in status with these 4 remaining cards here. The only one that I have any interest in at the moment would be Super Metroid. But again, this is a challenge very similar to Final Fantasy VI in that it's going to take some time. I need to set aside a good chunk of time to get this done because this can take anywhere from, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes if I'm speed running it to several hours. So yeah, just keep that in mind. The Pro Challenge wants you to get it done in less than 2 hours, but that's, the way that the game tracks time is slightly different from real time. So, take that for what you will. I think that's another challenge that would benefit from being a live stream. I haven't really given it much thought beyond the initial challenge, but I think between that and Final Fantasy VI, those will be two good cards and good challenges to experiment with the live streaming options. So that's what we got for here right now. No interest in tackling the other 3 games at this moment. So let's just keep on moving on. Alright, don't adjust your screens, it's not double vision. You are seeing Monster Max listed twice there, but again, if you think back to what we talked about in the 50 card celebration, that is not 2 separate cards with 2 separate sets of challenges, it's just the same challenge with 2 separate variations on the card, if that makes sense. Wrap your head around that one. Recall there are several cards in this collection that are like that. I think Jungle Book is one of them, and there's a few others. But I digress. As far as the remaining cards on this particular sheet go, the only one that I'm actively working on is still Twisted Tales of Spike McFang, which is a very underrated RPG. Definitely recommend checking that one out. Aside from that, I know that Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3 is a very popular game on the Game Boy, but it's not one that I've wrapped my hands around just yet, although that will probably be next after I finish off Spike McFang. Really, that's all I've got to say about this sheet of cards. Not much else is going on there, so let's just keep on trucking through. Alright, and once again, here's another sheet that, although we do have some new cards that have been taken off, there's nothing really new happening here in terms of progress, games that I'm currently working on, with the only exception being Final Fantasy 3/6 down there in the bottom right. Now, if you recall back to when we talked about this in the 50 card challenge update, I mentioned that, as we all know, this is not a game that's going to happen in the course of 5, 10, 20 minutes. It's going to take multiple hours, and I do have plans to eventually do a live stream of this game because I think it'll be very much more entertaining, engaging, and fun for the viewers of my channel here. So take that for what you will. I don't know when that's going to happen because in order for me to pull that off and do a multi-hour event, I need to set aside large chunks of time, make sure I'm not doing it on a work day, obviously, things like that. So that's not in my immediate future, although Final Fantasy VI is easily, without a doubt, one of my all-time favorite games on the Super NES, probably in my top 10 of all time for any system ever. So I really, really desperately want to get to that game, but it's just a matter of scheduling. I know I can do it, I will do it, it's just a matter of when, not if. So that's all I really have to say about this page, since I'm not really tackling anything else. So let's just keep on moving on. Okay, I think it's about time that we address the elephant in the room here with Zelda 1 to be exact. So, as I've told you several times over the years, I do plan on posting these challenges, I can post them, but what I'm looking to do is complete both sets of these Zelda 1 challenges at the exact same time, to make it much more fun and entertaining to watch for you as the viewers. So, let's take a moment to actually look at both sets of challenges right now. So you see the first card up here, let's go ahead and flip that one over. Very good, and let's go back and refresh your memories on the original first card that you saw. So here's the challenge for the first card. Very good, now let's go back to the original sheet. So, as you can tell, these challenges separately by themselves are still difficult and tricky, but they can be done. Combined together, they make for an enormously difficult challenge. I can pull them off, and I actually have pulled them off previously, but the reason I haven't posted the video is because I only recorded the final Ganon fight. What I would like to do is record the entire 9th dungeon just to show that I have the skill to get through the entire game, or at least the final dungeon rather, before getting up to Ganon and defeating him with the handicaps in place. So, that one will be coming whenever I get a chance to sit down and record it. It is what it is, and I know people are clamoring for that one just because it's Zelda. And I do plan to post that one eventually, but that's why it's not posted just yet. I need to record the entire final 9th dungeon. So that's it for that game. As far as the other games on this list, I did mention I was looking to get into Blackthorn, and I have started playing it a little bit more frequently than I have in the past. It is a fun game, and I think I can post that one, hopefully sooner than later. As far as the other games on this list, most of them are games that I just simply haven't played, or played nearly enough to know what exactly I'm doing and how to beat the challenge. So eventually they will be coming, but not yet. Enough said, let's move on to one of the last sheets of cards. Alrighty, we're in that home stretch right now, next to last sheet. So actually, quick little addendum here. So we've got 4 black rectangles. There actually should be 5. Contra the Alien Wars on Game Boy has also been completed, so apologies for that. There are actually 4 games only remaining. And the only one that I'm really even remotely interested in is the same one that we talked about in the 50 card update, which is Fire Striker. And if you think back, I mentioned that was like the game that harkens back to Pinball Quest on the NES. It's the same kind of deal. Very fun. Recommended to check that one out. As for the others, very classic games with Space Invaders. Really haven't given it much thought, though. Breath of Fire is a fun RPG, which I haven't gotten into, but of course I will at some point before it's all said and done. But that's where we're at. So let's just move on to the very final sheet here. Alright, once again, we've made it to the end of the collection. Thanks for sticking with us as always. I know it's a bit of a chore and a grind sometimes, but we did get here. Alright, looking at this final sheet, I can tell you that once again, not too much progress has been made, only except for that one card in the bottom we got rid of. Mortal Kombat 2, as we know, that is a game I am extremely fond of and proficient at, and that is definitely in the works. It will be coming hopefully sooner than later. I've just got a lot of cards and a lot of projects that I'm working on, so that one is definitely in the works. Another one that I can tell you is in the works actually is Lion King on the Super NES. It's really only 4 stages you got to get through without taking a death. It's not that complicated. That's just one of those low-hanging fruit, as I like to call it, so that one should be coming relatively soon, hopefully also. We've already talked about Tin Star and some of those other games up there. Other than that, like I said, not a whole lot else is going on aside from that one game we already completed. So yeah, that's pretty much what we got for you here. And that's just about going to wrap it up for this 70 card celebration video with 100 more challenges to go, hopefully sooner than later. Thanks guys for sticking around with me. This is Bill once again with the Nintendo Super Power Club Challenge channel, and we hope to be seeing you guys in the near future with upcoming videos. Take care.